Welcome back, everybody. Another week. A week without Formula One. A week without Formula One. What are we doing with ourselves? We've got to go outside in the cold, I suppose. It's not ideal. But last week, which depends who you're a fan of, was ideal. Because the championship is compared to, well, it's on, to finish that sentence, compared to what we were looking at coming out of, I think it was, well, definitely Mexico. Like, Mexico was the one. When we came out of Mexico, we're thinking, right, big lead. I mean, granted, Hamilton did kind of keep it kind of closer than it should have been because Perez was obviously the faster car, but Hamilton held it off. So coming out of Mexico, you've got the great drive Max came through with in Austin, holding off Hamilton in a race that he should have lost or whatever. He was, Hamilton had the slightly faster car until the end. And then obviously Mexico ran off into this, like turn one, down the outside, and then never seen again. So after those two races, it was looking like it was going to go Max's way. And then, certainly after Friday qualifying, Hamilton gets disqualified in Brazil. You're thinking that is game, set up, match, championship, everything. So, this season, I cannot wait. I've said it a million times. I'm going to go back to Netflix again. Next year's Netflix documentary is going to come out probably just before the season starts. It's going to be, I'm going to watch it 10 times in a row. It's going to be so sick. Depending on how they've framed it, and depends on who wins as well. That is quite key. I think for the neutral, I guess it depends on how it finishes, because judged by how it's gone so far, I think both narratives are, if anything, I don't know, it's hard to know what the absolute neutral thinks. And it depends on how into sport they are and all that kind of stuff. But the actual, from a neutral point of view, I'm starting to think, and correct me if I'm wrong, and you may well do, chuck it in the comments if you think I'm wrong. I think the Hamilton story now will, by the end of the season, could end up being better than the Verstappen one for the neutral. My reason for that is, given, from a pure sporting point, take out the personalities and take out the history, or take out the history of the dominance. If you look at a team who's been behind for most of the season, and there's a clear favourite, and the sort of public perception of that team who are behind has been the way it's been, and then all of a sudden you get to a point where obviously Silverstone happens, Monza happens, Russia happens, and then you have two races in a row like America and Mexico, and then Brazil happens. Brazil is the one that is basically the number one thing I'm talking about here. Brazil happens, and you're thinking, wow, 7-time champion who's done it all, 30 whatever years old. You've got the young gun, the more popular driver, the fans' favourite, blah, 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 blah. And the old guy's still pulling out performances and then winning consecutive races the first time all year. Like I said the other week, Hamilton won 3 of the first 4 races. Again, pretty much solely because of how good Mercedes as a team were. And I don't think Red Bull believed it at that point. I think they were kind of like going along. I think Red Bull, when they started getting into their running through France and Austria, they were like, oh, we are the best team for sure. And then they started putting their foot down and really going for it. So I think Mercedes kind of stole, they were better obviously in those races, but they kind of stole those early couple of races. So I'm starting to think that the story is kind of like a LeBron James and Tom Brady. Those kind of stories, like after all this, with all the young people, with all the kind of the tide of public opinion, they're still coming back, still winning races, still being competitive when most people didn't think they would. So I'm starting to think, I mean, obviously, I'm well aware, and as I just mentioned, there's a fan survey. I don't know how many there's hundreds of thousands of people who voted, and Max was the most popular driver, which is unsurprising. Because Formula 1's in terms of a lot of the fans are relatively new. So Max is going to be your favourite guy, and obviously a lot of the time, when you have a dominant champion, Schumacher, blah blah blah, they're not going to be popular. Hamilton was third, I think Norris was second, which surprising. I thought Daniel Ricciardo would be second, but so you've got the popular guy versus the serial winner, and everyone wants the popular guy to get the first one. Obviously, like in most sports, when it's the up and coming, Patrick Mahomes, the NFL, you want that guy to get that first one. And whether it comes this year, next year, Max Verstappen's going to win. I mean, I think he's going to win at least 4 World Championships. I'm going to say at least 4. So this one isn't like, as he said, I don't know if he actually believes what he's saying, but he said it is not going to change his life. I guess we'll see. We'll see how he acts if he wins. But I think it will. I think he's downplaying it quite a lot. I think he's trying to keep the pressure down. And a lot of what he said in interviews has been very calm. But then there's easy ways to. I've seen it with some of the ways that Sky Sports people are asking questions and the media people. Like there's certain questions he's not going to give. He's still the old Max in this. The old Max is still in there. The petulant sort of screw you, I'm going to answer how I want to answer it. And that gets borne out in, I guess, the first storyline of the week, which was the review from last week, or week before, sorry, with the São Paulo Grand Prix. They decided, so for those who didn't watch it, I'm sure everyone here did, so they basically, the premise of reviewing something that wasn't investigated was allowed. So that was one tick. But then they said the onboard camera angle wasn't significant, which I tend to agree. In terms of this actual avenue, they've gone back retrospectively and said, right, we didn't investigate at the time because we didn't have the. They also said they didn't investigate. They would have investigated if they had that camera angle, which tells you all you need to know. It's quite contradictory, this whole thing, but stay with me. It's basically the idea that they can't appeal something that wasn't investigated. So they did end up doing that, but they can't change it because it's not significant enough. Which I guess that's what they think. That's what they think. But they can't. I was saying it last week. I didn't really want them to go, right, yeah, you know what, you ran him off the road 5 seconds. It's just a bit, only because of the time that's expired, and I think that's the most important thing. I think Toto and Mercedes were kind of, well, they said they weren't expecting a penalty, which I think most people weren't, but given that they'd thrown Hamilton out of qualifying and they threw Vettel out of the Hungary Grand Prix for not enough fuel, it's tough. Like when the rules are breaking, it's hard because it's so inconsistent. I think as I'm going to go into with some of the other stuff, it's so inconsistent. And I think everyone's kind of getting a bit frustrated because they're thinking, well, you're giving penalties in Austria for guys getting run off track, but you're not giving penalty to Max. You're not investigating. You want to let them race. The Hamilton Verstappen stuff is so polarizing. You need to make the right decision all the time. And as we've seen in football with VAR, there's probably, if you get the decision wrong, or if you with the replay or review system in place, it's so difficult because every situation is very different. So I guess going to the move, I mean, the move itself, if they had the camera angle at the time in São Paulo on turn 4, they would have given Verstappen a 5-second penalty. That's just how, that's what would have happened. That's what everyone in the Formula 1 world, apart from diehard Max fans and Max himself, apart from them, it would have been a penalty. So okay, cool. You ran off the track, and all the drivers are kind of a bit irritated. I've never heard such a response because normally after Silverstone and some of the other stuff, the drivers give their opinion and they're a bit kind of on the fence, 50-50. But this one, they're all coming out. Russell, Leclerc, Norris, they're all coming out saying, we don't know what the rules are. Hamilton, obviously, like we don't know what the rules are now for driving off track because people were getting penalties before, like confetti. They've handed them out. Vettel in Canada 2019, where he came back off the track and run Hamilton to the wall. Like now, hopefully it doesn't happen. I hope it just goes on track and whoever wins the championship wins the next 2 races. To be fair, but because I can't be bothered to have another, and it's going to be Max that will instigate it. Like it'll be some kind of contact, and then someone will get a penalty or not get a penalty, and we don't really want that. So. Again, so turn 4 in São Paulo, that was kind of dealt with. The point being, you can't go back and it's not significant enough to go back. So that's what they said. But they also said they didn't have it at the time. They also said they would have investigated it if they had the onboard. So that was that out of the way. Then this whole flexi wing thing for Mercedes is Christian Horner's non-stop propaganda is probably the best way of putting it. About Mercedes' wing, he says he sees this, he sees that, but there's no protests going in, there's no sort of real allegation. It's non-stop kind of like mudslinging, I guess is the best way of putting it. It's kind of getting, I think everyone, not just me, the general tone of people I see and listen to, it's kind of getting boring now because if someone's got a faster car and you don't know why, investigate it or don't investigate it, because you can't be like, oh, that straight line speed is different formula. It's like, well, if you look at the top speeds from Brazil, Hamilton didn't have the top speed, and you know that it's a new engine, you can turn it up to 11, as we've already explained. So it's not as unbelievable as before. And I think the general feeling about Christian Horner is out there, and I guess Toto's just kind of like responding. And Horner did make a good point about Red Bull are finally challenging Mercedes. Mercedes haven't been challenged for 7 years, which is true. But if I was Toto, and if I was in that position, I'd have been like, listen, where were you in those 7 years? Because we were winning championships every year. I don't know what Red Bull had done their thing. They'd let Sebastian Vettel go, and then they were in the nowhere for a couple of years. They won the odd race in Mexico or the odd Monaco race. But while Mercedes and Ferrari were challenging for championships, Red Bull were just chilling at the back. They get Max in there, they let Daniel Ricciardo go, and then when they get a good car, now they're back. So it's kind of a funny one for Horner to drop that in that frosty press conference on Friday. It was pretty funny to listen to because it's the old English and German. They're all like, not that has anything to do with it, but their personalities. We as English, we can relate to how Horner's kind of doing it. You see it in the Premier League every week, and Toto's kind of a bit above it, but he will still throw some barbs back. So that will probably happen in Saudi Arabia, because Mercedes are going to bring their juicy engine, the spicy one, with 1 million horsepower, and it's just pure speed, that track, from what I've seen. So, you know, on paper, Mercedes could end up a second clear of FP1, and then Red Bull are going to be like, nah, we need to protest this. So I think protests are going to happen next week in Saudi Arabia, and we'll see. I mean, hopefully, well, they'll investigate it. If the wing's illegal, it's illegal. If it's not, then crack on, and it'll be difficult for Red Bull from there if they appeal it and it gets turned down. But that's pending. In terms of Qatar, it was weird weekend, to be honest, because FP1 and 2 were sort of everyone just working out what the track's like. No one really knew. Very twisty turning track. It's a cool looking track in terms of how it's driven. Obviously the surface is different. The curbs are shredding the cars. Mercedes looked a little bit in front when they turned their engines up, to the limit they're allowed. They used the old engine. If you don't already know, they used the old engine they used in Mexico. So they don't have the juicy one because they don't need it, because there's only one straight and there's nowhere else really you can overtake. So stick the old engine in, still plenty enough to qualify and pole about half a second almost again. So Hamilton is in a groove at the minute. Beat Verstappen by half a second, Bottas is behind them. On Verstappen and Bottas' run, Gasly blows his tyre, second corner from the end. He misses the pit, he goes down the pit straight and parks up on the right. Now, when we were watching it, I don't know what you guys are thinking, but I saw that, I thought, okay, cool, double yellows, that's it. The yellow flashed up on the screen, then it went away, track clear, and then it flashed up again, and then went track clear again. So obviously, from what I read that initially, without having to all the other stuff I've seen afterwards, I saw that as he's trying to sort of work out if there's a danger to the people coming. Because if Gasly's out on the right, off the racing line, there is danger because it's a parked car. But if you're on a qualifying lap, come out the last corner, you're down the left. You're not going to drift over to the right unless you blow a tyre out. But I think if there's a stopped car on track, yellow flags. Sainz, Bottas and Verstappen all went through. Well, Sainz and Bottas went through single yellows, and Verstappen went through double yellows. Now, you knew it was going to be a penalty straight away when they came out. The second week in a row, the qualifying's done, and then suddenly you get like something on Twitter saying Max Verstappen called to the strip. It's like, what, again? So he got five place grid penalty, which is quite. I mean, yellow flags can't be messed around with. You have to give the penalty for that. 5 places for Verstappen, 3 places for Bottas, and Sainz got away with it. So the grid all gets mixed up. You had Hamilton, Gasly, man like Fernando Alonso, Norris, Sainz, Bottas, and Verstappen. And you think, okay, here we go. So Gasly and Alonso are right behind Hamilton, are on soft tyres. So I was like, oof, this could get. And Alonso said he was going to send it. Obviously, Gasly, I don't know what he was going to do. Alonso, I was thinking, was like, he's just going to send it down the inside, just like, screw, I'm good. But you should probably know that, especially on soft tyres, 4 laps in, Hamilton's just going to go around you and then it's over. So I think Alonso did the right thing in the end. off the line, Verstappen's already in 5th after like 2 metres because Bottas has had a mare again. And I think it was Sainz as well, he got past. And Alonso overtakes Gasly, and then Verstappen wants to go around the outside. And Alonso is savage. Like, in terms of driving style, he is savage. Like, we saw it in Hungary with Hamilton. Like, Alonso's driving like old Alonso. If you give him a good car, he could be dangerous. Like, really, like next year, we need to, if Alpine get a good car, watch out for Fernando, because he's wheel to wheel, he's as good as anybody. He's as good as absolutely everybody in the grid, if not the best. Actual wheel to wheel. So Hamilton could get around him until he had a really good run, until Alonso made a mistake. And Verstappen had to back out because Alonso was like, snap the door. If that was anybody else apart from Fernando Alonso, Verstappen's going around the outside, and it's a different race. So Hamilton just disappeared, like mainly because, like I've been saying all year, following other cars is not it. And the Mercedes is about a second half quicker than those kind of cars, the AlphaTauris and stuff. Anyway, so by the time Verstappen got past, so he'd already got to 5th, he got past Norris, and he got past Alonso and Gasly, or Gasly let him through. By the time he got to that, I think he was already 5 seconds behind, and then Hamilton could just maintain a gap. So from there on, it was pretty boring until all the tyres started blowing up. It was a pretty boring race. And at that point, from being a Hamilton fan, it was just like, okay, can we just end the race now? Because all these tyres are blowing up, like Bottas' tyres, the Williams, and you're thinking, this is one of those races that anything could happen. Last minute, Hamilton gets a tyre puncture, and then Verstappen wins the race, and then the championship's over. That would be crazy. So, yeah, I think Hamilton managed the gap. Verstappen had good pace, but those two, you see the driver tracker. It was like Hamilton, Verstappen was like 5-6 seconds behind, and then it was like third was there. Like, they're just in a different league completely, and no matter what the differences are between cars, like those two drivers specifically, because Bottas and Perez aren't exactly following Verstappen and Hamilton the whole way. They're always in the mix somewhere, making mistakes. So it's definitely, whatever about the car, it's Verstappen and Hamilton are in a league of their own, bar none. I mean, we don't know how good Leclerc and Alonso, for me, are up there, but it's just levels to this game. It's not even just about the car, because like I said, Bottas and Perez have the same exact machinery. So it's not really something that you could be, it's something that's easily quantified by saying, right, these two are just legendary drivers, off they go. And it kind of went on like that. Strategic pit stops, fastest lap stop. The fastest lap thing is kind of interesting because you end up with whoever's got it. So let's say the race leader has it. He obviously can't then pit to get the fastest lap. It's the second place guy who needs to get it off. Assuming it's Verstappen and Hamilton. It's whoever's second that doesn't have it is like, okay, I need to pit and get it. So that kind of it adds a new dynamic to things. And obviously then the teammates of those can also pit last minute, screw that whole race up to get the point off Verstappen or Hamilton. So there was a point where it looked like it was going to be, there was a point for sure where it looked like it was going to be Perez or Bottas that were going to pit and get it. Turns out Verstappen didn't need it, didn't need to pit, or didn't need to pit especially for it because he got it on his medium tyres. Then he put soft tyres on anyway just to make sure. So Hamilton went off and won the race comfortably, very comfortably, and then Verstappen was comfortably second. Alonso came home third, partly because the virtual safety car towards the end, so Perez's charge kind of stopped. They kind of screwed Perez over a little bit. They kind of left Perez out with his strategy, which wasn't ideal. And then, yeah, all the tyre blowouts were just crazy because the curves are so sharp. Everyone's tyres were just going shred, shred, shred. And Bottas had to retire at the end because of he had a mechanical problem actually at the end. But yeah, that whole thing was a very strange race, a pretty boring race. I mean, obviously, it was a weird one. I think because of the atmospheres of the last few places we've been, specifically, obviously, Mexico and America, because there have been such high energy grids, crowds, fan engagement, podiums. You go to like Qatar, it's just like, in Brazil obviously as well, Qatar is just like, just no one there, a few people out in the crowd, not really too fast, the track isn't that good for overtaking, and Hamilton wins by 30, he only won by 20 seconds, with the pit stop, 30 seconds. It was kind of a weird sort of lull in energy. So I think Saudi Arabia is going to bring, especially with probably the protests and the speed of the Mercedes, and it's a new track, it's going to be galvanising, and then Abu Dhabi's Abu Dhabi. So it was a weird one. I feel like we could have done without this race, to be fair. Obviously, points gap-wise, you needed it, but it was just a really boring race. I think it's one of the races you chuck at the beginning. I think at the end of the season, I want to see the crowd-heavy events, the atmospheric events, to finish off the season. The last the five races, I think they should be atmospheric and interesting. So, yeah, Max leads by 8 points, which is key because the 8 point rather than 7 points, or even less, because Hamilton obviously Verstappen got the fastest lap. So, could have been 6 if Hamilton got the fastest lap. It'd have been a 6 point gap, which would have been quite important. 2 races to go, 8 points. I mean, if you said that to me a little while ago, I'd have been very surprised. Especially given, when did I do that little, I think it was just before America. After Turkey, just before America. Turns out Max won on what was seen as a Mercedes track in America. He also won Mexico, which he should have won. Hamilton ended up winning a track that should have been Red Bull in Brazil, and he also won in Abu Dhabi. So in terms of that prediction, it's kind of all going the other way, mainly because Mercedes have chucked a new engine in and they can chuck it in higher. So I think that might be a strategy going forward. Take a 5-place grid penalty, add a new engine in with 3 races to go, turn it up to the max, and you can fly. So the next 2 races are speed heavy. Like the new Abu Dhabi, I saw a new Abu Dhabi layout. I'll put it up just before that last race. It's fast. Like they've got rid of the 2 twistiest sections in Sector 1 and the end of Sector 2. They've made the Sector 2 one a loop, and they made Sector 1 just one dart down to like a hairpin, and another, so geographically 50% of the lap is straight line, or a bit turn 1, turn 2, straight line, and then a long arc. So it's just going to be pure speed. So on paper, look, if Mercedes' engine holds out and no one DNFs, it's going the other way in my opinion. So, but again, Formula One, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows who's going to crash into who? Who knows who's going to get a penalty for no reason? Who knows if Mercedes don't even get thrown out if they've been found to be cheating this whole time? Who knows? And who knows if Horner's going to say something crazy again and get himself banned like last week? So yeah, another thing, just to finish. I said this at the very, very early on. So the real ones who've been watching this from the beginning, you lot know this propaganda, showmanship, TV marketing stuff for Formula One is getting a little bit tiring, especially with the way they talk to the team bosses and especially the way they talk to Christian Horner, because they keep getting Christian Horner on every 5 minutes. They keep sticking the microphone in front of Christian Horner and going, "Speak. I know you're really annoyed." And the Lazenby and Damon Hill, I do like him because he's almost so detached from that, but he's so obviously asking inflammatory questions. And Christian Horner's had enough of Damon Hill for sure. And even Lazenby's getting involved in like, so do you think Toto's doing this? Do you think that's getting annoying for me? And I'm pretty sure people are starting to notice that the Formula One, the politics of it is kind of being played up, because every 5 minutes they're asking Max about it, they're asking Lewis about it. They're saying, and even the way they're asking the questions, oh, Toto said this about you. What do you think? It's like, yeah, he kind of did, but he didn't really do that. So that's getting tiring for me. But I guess we'll see. I don't know what they're gonna do next year. I guess it depends on who's winning. There is a general sort of when I guess Mercedes or Lewis win, there's a general sort of deflation, I think is probably the word. I think even like Max or Ferrari fans will probably notice that. I feel like there is a general sense of just like kind of, okay, cool, Lewis Hamilton wins again, blah, blah. But I think you judge by how this season's going to end. Like I'm hoping, I think most of the neutrals I'm hoping are going to think that if Hamilton wins this week, obviously if he wins as he's expected to win, he could win by a lot. So that might sort of sour things. But if he wins, he'll lead he'll be joint tied in the championship if he wins with the fastest lap. So I think that's going to be key. Like I said before, Max only needs to win one race. So if he wins one race, that's it. Kind of. Well, it depends on, yeah, pretty much if he wins one race, 1 out of 2. So that's kind of the aim. I don't know what this weekend's going to be like. I have no idea. It's going to be quite fascinating with the politics of how it's going to end up. But 2 very fast tracks coming up. Mercedes have a very fast engine, and Red Bull are under pressure. I think that's the summary. That's the tagline. So I'll be back next week with a little preview. I won't be back. Yeah, I'll do a little. Actually, no, I won't. Screw that. I will not, because there's no pre-run, there's no races, there's no previous Jeddah Grand Prix. So this will act as a recap and a preview, all in one, and then I'll be back. I will be back bright and early after the Jeddah Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, and then we'll see what's what. Championship could be over, one way or the other, or we could be going to Abu Dhabi with, like I said, 1 or 2 points either way. It could be if Hamilton wins with fastest lap, it's dead even going into like that's incredible. Imagine both of them on the same amount of points with one race. Winner takes all. Literally winner takes all. I don't think that's ever happened. That's literally never happened. There's been multiple people going for a world championship on the last day, like 2012, but no one's ever been tied. It's like winner takes all. Whoever beats the other person, that's it. Off you go. You're a champion. So I'm looking forward to it. Appreciate it once again. If you got this far, give yourself a pat on the back. And I'll see you very soon.